And we're live. Welcome to the Rise and Above podcast, everybody. Today I have Tony Sargentopoulos with me and Sammy Vona. How are you guys doing?
You for guess first, Sam.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
And the reason I say guest first is because I am actually a guest co-host today.
Yeah.
And Sam is here. For those of you who are tuning in, obviously you saw, we've done a lot of marketing about, with this show. I think the funny thing is, Sammy, is that before we get into everything, we were talking a couple days ago with you about maybe doing this in February, or we were trying to come up with a date and a time. Yeah. And the next thing you know, we said, how about Tuesday? And there wasn't a whole lot of time to really think about it. So we hurry up and got the marketing out there, which was well received out there for sure when it comes to the show, because it's a riveting story. I mean, it's an amazing story about overcoming and triumph over, such unbelievable, an unbelievable situation that happened with you growing up. But
so I guess with that said, you guys know each other.
We've met.
You've
met.
You've grown up.
Since we were about that high, that big.
Yeah. And that's, our moms, Joanne and Denise, had been friends forever. And so, I could swear we played Little League. I don't know why I'm thinking we played Little League baseball together at one point for Ohio Water in Struthers, Ohio.
Oh, yeah, we did.
We did, didn't we? Yes.
Yes,
and
we did.
Yeah. And, it's just been, his dad taught me how to hit a fastball. I mean, he took us in the backyard, threw it at our head and told us you're going to have to figure it out. Right. Yeah. So we've known each other for quite some time. Sam, you're in Wesley.
I'm in Wesley Chapel. I'm about 10 minutes right outside of Tampa Bay.
Okay. So Wesley Chapel, Florida, and from Struthers, Ohio, the Youngstown area, old steel mill town. When did you move down there to Florida?
Oh, end of 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
And the story, I mean, as far as what you've overcome and persevered through, and who you give that thanks to for helping you through all of that, and there's so many people, I'm sure, that you are wanting to mention today, and there's so many things you want to talk about. I don't know, Dave. I would think that what we would want, because Struthers, Ohio knows the story of Sammy Vona. Youngstown, Ohio knows the story. Wesley Chapel knows the story. Lansing, Michigan doesn't know the story.
I don't know the story.
You don't know the story.
No. Yeah. So Sammy, I'm new to your story. Please kind of walk me through what happened.
Okay. I was thinking how to go about this. I know it's going to be different than when I speak at Alcoholics Anonymous or I speak at Celebrate Recovery. But I'm going to kind of go in the same direction, just to give you a brief overview. As a young guy, I was confused right out of the gate, and I had a great childhood. Me and Tony both, came from the same, we're cut from the same cloth, and great childhood growing up. However, my grandmother on my mom's side, she was a councilman in the city of Struthers for 30 years, and she was a saint. She as an elected official, she went on her own time and on her own dime, feeding the homeless, giving to the poor, always taking people, elderly people that weren't so fortunate, back and forth to the doctor, different medical appointments. On the other side of that coin, my father's father, Youngstown, is also known for the mafia, and my grandfather was involved with that, in my father to an extent, So I had an identity crisis, right off of the get-go. And I held things in as a young guy. I wasn't able to verbalize, the things that were bothering me. And that's how I ended up, doing alcohol and the drugs and the amounts that I did, and for the longest time that I did them. I was an athlete, just like Tony. And I I played all three sports. I excelled primarily at football, and I got a scholarship out west to a school in Missouri. And I was there 1 year. Going into my second year, I had failed the drug test 3 times. I knew it was coming once. They told me again when it was coming twice. Failed that one. Knew it again the date and the time for the third one, and reluctantly I failed that one too. So I was sent out of 40 recruits. I was sent home packing with my tail between my legs, back to Youngstown, and from there it all went downhill. Started to get into the cocaine, going out every night. However, I was back at YSU. I was going to school. Wasn't primarily focused on an academic style lifestyle at that point. Just wanted to, hang out and get drunk and get high with my friends. I got a job with Federal Express, and I screwed that up. I'm not going to go into the story, but I did something with their truck, and I had all kind of charges pending against me. Theft of a corporate vehicle, paraphernalia. I got rid of all the packages that were. It was around Christmas time. I got rid of all the packages that were in the truck, and that's when I went to my first rehab. And they gave me a choice: we're either going to file all these charges on you, or you could quit, and resign, but we'll send you to rehab. So, that's all I ever knew was the easier, softer way. So I'm sorry, do you have something to say?
I wanted to ask, so we have a timeline as far as your age is concerned. So at this point in time, you're about 21 years old, 22 years old?
I'm about 22, 23.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm
How,
about 22.
how old were you when you started doing drugs and alcohol?
Well, I was drinking before. I was an alcoholic when I was in high school. I was on my way to an alcoholic. I don't know if I met the criteria of what an alcoholic in today's terms means, but I was definitely working towards an alcoholic degree at that point in my life. I used to fill Gatorade bottles up with homemade Dago red wine. It's an Italian homemade wine. I used to fill that up in a Gatorade bottle and pass it off as cherry Gatorade, and I did it for most of all the home games, and it made me hot. It made me tingly, and I thought at the time it made me bigger, faster, stronger. Looking back at it now, it didn't do none of the above. I'm amazed at the high school football career that I had, looking back in, all the shenanigans that I did with my body, and I just made bad decisions all around. But I would stay probably 16, 15, 16, started drinking, at Friday night events, and then it just picked up through the years, and then it just gradually became an everyday, every night thing, and then the drugs were just added to the mix.
Yeah, at that point, 15, 16 years old, you're doing that stuff, but and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, we've all done that stuff. Let's be transparent here. When you're 15, 16 years old in high school, 17 years old, we dabble in some things that obviously we're not supposed to. And is your mindset at that point, well, I'm just doing what everybody else is doing? Or are you aware at all at this point that maybe I do have somewhat of a problem, but I don't know that yet, or maybe I do know that? What was going on? Do you remember that back then?
I knew I had crossed the line that I shouldn't have crossed. I didn't know at the time when you cross over that line of addiction, you can never go back. Like they say, a pickle can never go back to being a cucumber. Okay, and once I crossed that line of severe alcoholism and addiction, but I definitely knew I had crossed the line. I didn't have the knowledge and the wisdom of what alcoholism was, because I really never saw it in my family, and I got uncles and that are in the program, but I never grew up seeing my actual family drinking and doing drugs. It was pretty much I don't want to say a peer pressure thing, because I didn't take to the peer pressure thing too much. It's just something that made me feel better. That I remember the first time I drank, and I was like, wow, it took me out of that. It took me out of being me. I was able to internalize the things that were bothering me internally in a I guess an awkward state of mind, in a
it made things easier on you, so to speak, as far as the stresses in your life.
Yeah, exactly. It loosened me up for all the wrong reasons.
How long did you stay at YSU before you walked away from that?
Well, actually, I almost got my degree at YSU. I'm like 30 some hours short of a physical education degree, and the only reason I never went back is because the Bureau of Vocation and Rehabilitation, there's some classes that I wouldn't be able to do because of they're math classes. So I wouldn't be able to do them because of my vision. So they tell me, from the job that I got now, I'm a special education school teacher down here. And the lady that was my jobs coach, she just said, you have an equivalent bachelor's degree. She said, if they want to look into your, transcripts, they'll see how much college you got, and they'll understand why you couldn't take, the courses that you couldn't take to finish. But I was there I probably was off and on at YSU for 5 years, 5.5 years, Tony.
Yeah, Dave, for everybody who doesn't know what YSU is, that's Youngstown State University. And we're saying YSU back and forth to each other. And some people might be saying, what institution is that? Right. A lot of people know YSU, but that is Youngstown State University, located in Youngstown, Ohio, that Sammy's talking about. So, you don't graduate with the degree. And then where do you go from there at that point? Where does life take you at that moment?
That's when I got hired with General Motors. And I got hired in General Motors in '94. And, that's really when the big time stuff began.
How long were you at GM?
I was there, technically I was there 13 years, because I finally went out when I was 6 years visually impaired, but I was going in and out of the work program that they had there upstairs where the EAP reps, the computer room. I was basically just showing up there a couple hours a day. And, this is when you could do that kind of stuff. Now I don't even know what you can get away with and what you can at General Motors. But I finally went out on disability in 2007.
Okay. As far as what you can get away with at General Motors now, it's not like when we first started there. I started the year before you in '93, and I know what you're talking about with the AP program, and it's much different now. It's not that people, can't manipulate the system to a certain extent, but it's not like it was back in the day at all. It's changed quite a bit drastically, actually. So 2007. And then where are you at this point? And at that point, you're 36 years old at this point.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was 36. Yeah. 36. But I got shot. In 2001.
So
we skip past that.
So yeah, we skipped over that, but we obviously want to talk about that and whatever it is that you're willing to talk to our listeners, our viewers about today on the Rising Above podcast. As far as that story goes.
I'm as open as I can about it. That was it was a night I'll never forget. It was a night that changed my life forever. And I didn't know that it was going to have the impact that it did on me as a person, as the person I am today, so to speak, rather than the person that I was when I first became a visually impaired blind person. I went out on Thanksgiving night, and I was drinking, you know. And I've been to over 40 rehabs throughout my whole life. And the first 20 of them were in Glen Bay, up in Rock Creek, you know, other than the first one I went. And the first one I went to was actually 45 miles from where I live here today in Tampa Bay. It was in Spring Hill, Florida. It's about 45-minute drive. That's where Federal Express sended me to when I went to my first rehab. And then when I got hired with General Motors.
What happened was, Sam, what happened? Yeah, we lost the Wi-Fi for 1 second. So hold on 1 second. Are we back?
There we are.
There we go. Okay. So you started talking about that night, Thanksgiving night, and we lost connection for a second. Sorry about that.
Okay. I was saying I've been to a lot of rehabs. You know, I've been to, and this is something I'm not proud to say, but I've been to over 40 rehabilitations, you know, across the United States. You know, not only the first one that Federal Express sent me to down here, which is only 45 minutes from where I currently live now. And then the first 20 of them were General Motors in Rock Creek. I'm sure you're familiar with Glen Bay. You know, a lot of people, I'm sure, that have been there.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, that sure. I was going there every 6 months for, you know, 30 days at a time. And then, you know, and
did it help you? Did it help you?
Pardon me?
Did it help you, Glen Bay?
You know what? Looking back, I probably would have told you at the time no. You know, but looking back now, and the recollection and the stuff that I it's like I have an invisible toolbox. I always took something from each of those rehabs. Every time I went into rehab, I came out with something positive. I may not have used it at that time in my life when I should have used it, you know, but I'm definitely using it now. You know, I'm definitely using it. You know, my dad calls me a late bloomer, Tony. You know, he says better late than never, Sammy.
That's I mean, that's as true as it gets.
Yeah.
Better late. Some people always say, well, it's too late for me. And I never understand that. So I agree with them 100% there.
No, it's really never too late. You know, it's never too late. But anyhow, I was out on Thanksgiving night and I was drinking that wine I was telling you about. And I had left. We had a gathering at my parents' house. And my ex-brother-in-law was there, Jimmy Muzzolino. And we were drinking. Anyhow, I had left, and I went to go, you know, go for that higher bus. So I went looking for some cocaine, and I ended up finding it. I ended up staying up from November 24th or the 27th of November until December 19th. I was up for 3 weeks. I don't think I slept at all in those 3 weeks. And on the 19th, I had an appointment with the pain management doctor in Austintown at the old Austintown ambulatory on 46 there. And I had
in Youngstown, yes.
Yeah. And I had went with the guy that I was getting the drugs off of. And because I had owed him like a couple $1,000, you know, because I ended up going broke. I ended up spending all my GM money, all my checks, all the money I had put away. And I ended up owing him like $2,000-some. And at the time, I was getting those 40 milligram Oxycontin pills. And at the time, they were going for $40 a pop on the street, you know. And we went to lunch at that sandwich factory. Remember that sandwich factory right on the corner of Mahoning?
I do.
And 40. Well, we went to lunch that day. All right. I went to the pain management doctor. We waited for my pills to get filled. And then we went back to the east side where it all happened. You know, I gave him his 60-some pills. You know, we were even, and I got 120 of them for the script. And I had 60 more in a bottle in my pocket. Well, I got back to the house and I finally dozed off for a little bit. And I remember it was dark. It was 6 days before Christmas. It was snowing. It was cold. I fell asleep on the couch in the living room. and they were playing their video games, you know, and they used to smoke marijuana, and they used to roll it up, and then they would dip it in Tussinex, and it would act like PCP. You know, PCP made people jump off buildings and angel dust, stuff like that. Well, that's similar with the Tussinex did when you dipped it in when you dipped the marijuana in the Tussinex. Well, anyhow, I woke up. I had a pillow to the side of my head, and there was a gun in it. You know, and he goes, give me the rest of them pills. You know, and I had just popped up. You know, I'm thinking, why has he got a pillow next to my head? You know, and I told him something like, go screw yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I can't remember the exact words, but my ego was so big back then, Tony, it could have been anything like that. Before I had a chance to even to try to lunge towards him, he took that gun and he put it to my forehead. And he popped the first one. I don't know if you guys are able to see, but I'll point to you. The first one I took right above my right eye. I got a scar. It's a divot. That's where I took the first one. The second one hit me right between my eyes. The third one took my nose completely off. The fourth one hit me behind this ear. The fifth one hit me behind that ear. And I have scars. I don't know if you guys are able to see my scars. Probably not, but believe me, I have a lot of scars. And that was 5 times that I had gotten shot in the head, and I was still living. Okay. And I'm coming in and out of consciousness, you know, and then I'm on the ground. They're picking me up and dropping me. One person's got my hand, another got my legs, you know. So they throw me in my SUV, and I knew McCalvey Lake was not far from there, and I just knew that's where they were going to take me, because I knew a lot of bodies that got dropped in that lake with a lot of safes, and you know that as well as I do. And anyhow, they got me in the car, and we're going back. We're going down McGuffey. You know how McGuffey turns into Jacobs Road?
Yes.
And you take Jacobs Road over the McCalvey Lake Bridge the back way instead of coming from 422. Well, I was playing possum. I had my finger on the door latch. And once those tires started to go over the bridge, I heard a change in the tires. Tires make a certain noise when you travel over a bridge. Well, I knew I was on the bridge. I popped that latch open and I rolled out. Okay. Now they were black. They probably turned white at the time, because I really believe they thought I was dead. And well, I fell out of that, in and out of consciousness as I went. I woke up. My feet were hanging off the bridge, and I had rope and cinder block. I mean, it's like my legs were just being pulled from under me. He shot me one more time in the chest, and over the Jacobs Road Bridge I went. And thank God that part of the lake was not that deep. I was in the little ravine that hugs the side of the lake that's towards 422. And Dave, when I say 422, that's a main route that goes through Campbell, which surrounds that area of the lake that I'm talking about.
Okay.
So
And
basically, let me say this real quick to people that are listening that aren't from Youngstown. When Sammy's talking about the geographical location, he's mentioning the Jacobs Road Bridge, and then we can simply say this is an area that you really don't want to hang out in at that point in time during this time period. It's a lot quieter area now. It was not back then. That was not where you wanted to be. So everything he's talking about with the Jacobs Road Bridge and the turnaround and McKelvey Lake and 422 going in that direction is what he's saying is, you know, he was in a bad area, bad spot for people who don't know. Yeah. But go ahead, Sam.
it was bad. So anyhow, the lake was below freezing. You know, it was a little slushy because the lake did not totally freeze over, you know, and that's what kept me alive. The cold water, you know, the cold water coagulated all of my head wounds and the one in my chest, you know, and I didn't bleed out. And I remember I vaguely remember this. I remember getting the cinder block and the rope off of my legs, you know, and I don't know how I made it up that hill, because I go back every now and then to look at that just for my own. you know, and now there's a fence there. There's a fence there where you can't throw a ball. And that they built that fence after I got shot. You know, and I'm not happy for that, but I'm just saying they had put that fence up because I think I was the last body that was probably thrown in that lake. And but I wasn't supposed to come out of that lake for sure, you know. But by the grace of God, I did. And anyhow, they firebombed my SUV on the other side, and an off-duty Youngstown police officer was coming from 422, and he saw the SUV I had. It was on fire, so he got out. He's looking around, and I don't know if I was in on a concrete driveway in one of the houses that sits on the lake there, or if I was actually on Jacobs Road. I really don't remember, but I remember the flashlight. You know, he turned me over, and I could barely see because my left eye was totally shot out. It was hanging on my cheek. The bullets scraped over to my right eye, and I have a bullet lodged in my right optic nerve. I have a prosthetic implant in my left eye, and I have macular scarring, a detached retina, macular scarring, and a couple other different eye diseases in my right eye. Plus, the bullet is lodged in my optic nerve, so I only have 3% vision. Excuse me, and it's amazing that I'm able to navigate how I get around. You know, I have a stick, the white stick with the red tip. I have a seeing eye dog that I use. But over the years, I've adapted well, you know, and I think a lot of it is attributed to the athlete that I was able, you know, to be back then. I think, you know, my mind kind of caught up with me, and a lot of the senses, you know, that were hidden for so many years came back to life, and that's why I'm able to get around so good. But anyhow, that police officer called 911. This is what I was told. I don't remember none of this. I was hit with the paddles because I had lost so much blood. My heart had stopped. They brought me to St. Elizabeth's Hospital, where they had a helicopter waiting for me because my trauma was too severe for anything they could do at St. Elizabeth's. So they flew me to Cleveland, the trauma unit. And all I remember was the swoosh, 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 helicopter propellers, you know, from that night. And then I was induced to a coma. And I had a small traumatic brain injury. I had a cerebral hematoma. They had cut my skull on top to relieve the pressure. And, you know, I was in the hospital for quite a while, you know. But it was like God put his hand out of the sky and pulled me up out of that lake. Honestly,
I have no other explanation for it.
There is no other explanation. And I tell this story the same way every time you know, there's no hidden truth about what happened to me. You know, everything, the same story I've been telling for years, it hasn't changed. It's the same story, you know, and that's pretty much the happy medium of it. It had to be a power greater than myself, and there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that it was God.
So at that point, you realized that you were kind of given a second chance, right?
Yeah.
What kind of things did you actively do to change your life?
Well,
I mean, obviously your state of being is completely different now. You cannot.
Well, now, you know, well, I woke up, I come out of the coma, and I was all wrapped in bandage. And I was playing the Bob Seger's. My mom had the 70s classic hits on the side of my bed because I used to like to listen to a lot of music. Bob Seger, Turn the Page was on. And my mom had my hand in her hand. And I had woke up. And the first thing she said to me, she said, Sammy, God took your sight so you could finally start seeing with your heart. Now that hit me. It was more powerful than what I had just experienced with the shooting. Her words were so powerful, you know, but I wanted to have a couple more chances after that. I ended up coming home. I had a speech problem. I had to learn how to walk all over again. My balance was off because my frontal lobes, one side of your brain works your motor skills, the other side works your speech. Both of mine were tore up from the bullets. And I had to go through speech therapy. I had to learn how to walk again. But I had a PICC line in my shoulder, and I was getting constant Dilaudid, the pain medication, Dilaudid. Plus, my dad was giving me concoctions of Oxycontin liquid, so I wouldn't be in pain, And at the time, he didn't know that he was, uh, making me worse. I didn't think I was making me worse, but I was an addict. Anything that made me feel different, I wanted more of, and that's what heroin does. So I went from an alcoholic and a cocaine addict, and I eventually became a full-fledged heroin addict.
And this is after all this happens.
After this,
and then
after
and now you're
mm-hmm.
How old are you at this point?
Oh God, I was 30, 31, 32.
Okay. All right. And this is pre-2000.
I'm going into General Motors. I'm sitting in the EAP room. I'm on the computer, and I'm just nodding out. I'm nodding out. I had the disability bus pick me up and take me every day, and it was just, talk about excuse my language, a real shit show. That's what my whole life was about at that time, and I just couldn't see far enough, guys, to get out of my own way, and then I went for some more years like that, but the seed was planted. The seed was planted with the shooting, with the words that my mother said. I knew where I belonged. All the rehabs that I've been in and out of, all the AA meetings that I went to, I knew I was just like them. I knew in my heart that I was just like them. I didn't want to tell the normal person that, because I had it all under control. That's how my ego was. Oh, look, I'm okay. I got it. I didn't have nothing. I didn't have a clue, and I ended up meeting my wife. She's a registered nurse, and there's a big company down here. It's called Baycare. It's Tampa Bay Healthcare Systems. It's the biggest. She works in the administrative level of Baycare, and we moved down here in 2014. My dad had leukemia, and thank God he beat it, and that kind of, shook me up for a little bit. It shook me up because, me and my parents were close, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to lose my dad. But let me backtrack a little bit. Right before I got hired at General Motors, my daughter's mom was pregnant, and she had the baby right after I got hired, which my daughter was born, and she had a bad pregnancy. And the doctor came at Northside Hospital at the time and said, listen, your daughter's breech, and, there's a possibility, we could lose both of them, or it's going to have to be, which one do you want us to save? Because we're not. And I'm thinking, what? You want me to make that kind of decision? I was not equipped to make a decision like that at 24 years old. There was no way, Now, looking back, knock on wood, they both come out of it. Linda had to go through surgery after Samantha was born. Samantha's healthy and has her own life now. But I couldn't make that decision as a 24-year-old. First of all, I wasn't mature enough. And as bad as I thought I was as a person, and ego is as big as mine as it was at the time, I was smaller than my pinky fingernail, because I couldn't man up, and I couldn't make any decision at that point in my life about anything. And they come at a decision like that at me, and that just fueled you think that would have sobered me up to want to change course? No, I took that plane right into the headwinds and crashed many times. But anyhow, I came down here in 2014, and I got off of the heroin. I was off of the cocaine. I was drinking a little bit, but I was still using the pain pills. And I used them until 2018. I overdosed here at the house that I'm in. I was downstairs. I crushed up 30 oxycodone blue 30 milligram pills. I put them into a small pile. I had cut up some Valium, put them in with it because I knew that would take me out. And I was sitting in my recliner downstairs, and I says, God, listen. I said, I'm going to do this. I said, I can't disappoint no more people. I said, I can't get sober. I says, but if you get me back from what I'm going to do, I promise you that I will do everything in your power to do the next right thing if I can't do it myself. Excuse me. Well, needless to say, I ended up turning blue. Sylvia flipped me over. She swept out my mouth because I was I was throwing up from the mouth. I was going to drown in my own throw up. She called 911. I ended up getting rushed to the hospital. Another coma I'm in. Okay. Now, this was my third coma already in my lifetime. Most people don't experience one of them. This was my third one. But I came out of it, and I had I was intubated. But when I came out of it, let me tell you guys something. The spirituality, talk about having an spiritual experience, even more powerful than when I got shot. And I told you God, put his hand down and picked me up out of that lake. That room was so bright. It's like my vision, I could see that day. It's like God gave me two eyes with 20/20 vision to see the nurses and the doctors in the pictures on the wall for a very short time. And I knew right then and there I had to make a choice. It was either get sober or go home and shoot yourself once and for all. Well, I got out. I went from that hospital. I didn't even come home. I made sure I went to rehab from that hospital. I made sure it was no, go around and collect $200 like the Monopoly board. I went from the hospital to the rehab. I was at the hospital for, I don't know, like 10 days. I went to the rehab. I was at the rehab that I didn't care for 3 days, and I wanted to go to a better rehab. So I said, Sylvia, find me the best rehab in Tampa Bay that I can go to. Not the most prestigious one, but a good one to where I could get my head out of my ass. So she found one. I went to that one the same day. I didn't come home because I knew if I would have came home and spent one night at home, the chances of me relapsing were greater than anything ever. So I went from the hospital to rehab. And I got to that rehab. It was in Town and Country. It's on the other side of Tampa Bay, closer to Clearwater. And they were giving me the shot of buprenorphine. And it helps you detox from heroin, opiates, stuff of that nature. Well, I was on that shot for 3 days. I went to I forget, I can't remember if it was an AA meeting or a Celebrate Recovery meeting or a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. But I remember leaving that meeting, man, and I felt great. I felt like I heard something. It was probably the most stupid thing that anybody in the history of recovery ever heard, but it touched the nerve with me. And I went back to my room that night and I hit my knees and I said, God, listen. I said, give me enough strength to get through this, please, once and for all, or take my life tonight. My stomach cramps went away. The sweats went away. I was able to take a hot shower because a shower would used to hurt my skin because my skin was so sensitive and delicate. I woke up I got the best night of sleep that I ever had in years. I woke up the next morning. I was able to eat a full meal. And I went to that doctor and I said, Doc, I don't need no more of that shot. He said, something happened to me last night. I can't explain it to you. I said, but I know I don't need no more of that shot. He's like, well, Sam, can you at least stay so we can monitor your vitals and you could stay for the rest of the program? I said, absolutely. That was December 1st of 2018, and I haven't had a drink or a drug, in a little over 5 years now. And I don't intend to. I don't plan on it. I don't think about it. Relapse is evident in a lot of people's lives. It happens. Some people say it's a part of recovery. Well, we could say it was a part of my recovery because I had a lot of relapses. But I don't even look at that. I just never got sober. I never had the willingness to get sober. I never had the strength. I never had the courage. until I found my faith. My faith had to get to where it needed to be to get me out of the predicaments that I kept putting myself into time and time after, again and again and again. And now, don't get me wrong. My past is my greatest asset. A lot of people don't want to go back into their past. They say you gotta, to put the rear view mirror down and not look into that mirror. Me, I have to, because I need to know and remember where I came from. And it's beneficial to me to look at my past because it was so tragic. It was so dark, But, I'm in a good space today. I'm in a healthy space. I'm in a good space, and, I don't think I'm even living my best life yet. I don't know how many years God is going to give me with this broken up body of mine, all the stuff that I put it through. But as long as I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to be the best Sam that I can be, for that day, just like I was today. And I'm going to keep doing it again and again and again, And that's
As,
pretty.
as long as I've known Sammy, and like we talked about in the very beginning of the show, ankle high, I knew about when this happened. I remember talking to you. I don't remember at what point we had a conversation just to see how you were doing, how things were going. We never had a very extensive conversation about this whole situation. I had no idea about to what extent you went through what you. I knew it was bad. I did
Yeah,
not know that it was this bad.
yeah,
And I literally the entire time you were talking, I couldn't even think about what I wanted to ask you next because I was completely I'm immersed in what you were telling us. I can't believe. I mean, well, I can believe. I know why. You know why. I could tell that all the people that are watching this show right now, as I'm looking at all the comments over here, they know why. Uh, but it's just amazing what you went through. Not just even the one evening when
yeah,
you shot 6 times, 5 times, and then one other time after you somehow were able to think his way through, playing possum as you called it, and
yeah,
making your way out of that vehicle. But then not one, not two, but three different times in your life going through a coma,
yeah,
and then everything else that he talked about. And here you are sitting here today talking to us, and we're not the first that you've talked to about this story. You've done this so many times with so many different church groups that you've spoken with,
yes,
schools, and
right.
I think this is the first podcast that you've been on. I
This is
think you
my
were,
first podcast. Absolutely. Yeah.
and Dave. I mean, you've had some. This is have 200 episodes getting
This
close.
is 180, so getting close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's had some guests on. I mean, it's the Rising Above podcast,
Yeah.
and it's overcoming and persevering. And I've listened to a lot of shows and watched, and he's had some riveting guests on. The ones that I've listened to, I've never seen anything like this right here. This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, this
That-
is insane. The amount of the amount of things that you've gone through and overcame. I mean, it's tremendous. You shouldn't even be sitting here for one, telling your
Yeah.
story. But the fact that you're able to do that, how does that make you feel?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It makes me feel sad in a way because my parents felt everything that I felt. My sister, Holly, she felt everything that I felt. Everything that I've been through, they were right there with me. So, if you guys want to fact check me, go to them because they went through everything that I just told you. You know, to as honestly and truthfully as I could have told you. They've been through it, and they're still with me. I have all my relationships intact. My relationship with my daughter. I wasn't the best father. I wasn't. I wasn't a garbage father, but I wasn't. There was so much more things for me to do with my daughter growing up that I have regrets. But that's okay because you know what? She's in my life today. I'm in her life today. We talk just about every day on FaceTime. We see each other every 3 months. But if I'm not up there, she's down here. I see my grandkids. You know, um, but they like you said, how do I feel? That's how I feel is when I think about what I put them through. Not so much me.
You have one of the most powerful stories I think I've heard, at least on this podcast. And for the people listening, what would you like? What kind of information, what kind of things would you want them to take away from your story?
I mean, as far as the message you have today of overcoming such, I mean, what was tragic.
Know your surroundings. Know your surroundings, because I was so not aware of, and I'm not saying in bad places. I'm just talking about places where there was marijuana and cocaine at the parties I went to. I wasn't aware, that I was going to end up doing it, not let alone that it was being there. If I knew that it was there, I probably wouldn't have went. But when I got there and I knew it was there, I was like, wow, I'll try that. I wasn't aware of my surroundings at that time, and today it's like this. If I don't pick up the first, and that means if I don't pick up the first drink, if I don't do the first line or the first pill or the first shot, I don't ever have to worry about doing the last.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
So I just don't pick up, and I do the things that I've been taught since I went to my first AA meeting. I do things to try to become a better person. My kids at the school, they make me better. They make me better because I'm dealing with kids that are mentally retarded, kids that have spinal bifida, uh, uh, cerebral palsy, nonverbal, low functioning autistic, high functioning autistic, different spectrums of all disabilities, but I try to interact with each and every one of them every day, and it takes me out of myself. It takes me out of myself. Should I be doing more with other alcoholics and drug addicts? Probably. But as long as I'm doing something helpful, in that man's eyes, and when I'm pointing up, I'm talking about the creator, the guy that made me, and I like to call him God. Not everybody believes in the same God as I do, but to me, he's God, Jesus Christ, and that's what got me from A to Z, and I'm definitely not where I want to be at, being the Z person that I am. If you were able to follow that, I've missed so much of my life, and I missed out on so many things. Them are the things I don't dwell on. I try to focus on today. I try to keep today in a 24-hour increment. I don't try to get too far ahead of me, and if I do get behind me, I just look at the things that put me in this position to how I got here, and as long as I don't, go backwards, I got to go forwards. Standing still is not an option for me. If I get complacent, I'll end up drinking. I know myself. I know my personality. Now that doesn't mean I can't have a nap or watch some football on Saturday or Sunday. But during the week, I need to be active, because there was a point in my life where I wasn't doing nothing. I was just getting up, getting high, looking for drugs, looking for people to do drugs with, and that was a full-time job within itself, and that, believe me, that paycheck, you don't want that paycheck.
I have a question. For the people that shot you, did they ever find those people?
Well, that's ironic. My niece is a deputy sheriff. Jimmy's middle child, Tony, Jimmy Muzz.
Mm-hmm.
His middle daughter, Gianna, she's a deputy sheriff, and the story with that was he got 8 years for felonious assault, but he got a 7-year arson charge added to that. So he got 15 years to life when he shot me. He got out in 8 years. Okay. When I found that out, that's when I was still getting high. I continued to get high. My ego was coming at me. I wanted to go find him. I wanted to pull his eyes out of his head. But I wasn't able to do that being a disabled person. Even if I wasn't myself, I probably still, as much as I wanted to do it, I wouldn't have done it because I wasn't raised like that. But anyhow, he got busted for a big heroin ring, one of the biggest, and then he got busted for another felonious assault, which went to a attempted murder charge. So he is locked up now, I believe, for the rest of his life because he went down on that 3-strike rule. Yeah.
Wow.
And he was from Youngstown. Yeah, the kid. He was from Youngstown. And I have dreams about him still. I still dream about him. I still see his face as clear as day in my dreams. But I just take it as a blessing that I'm able to dream at night. I don't look at it any other way than thank you, God, for letting me dream. Good or bad, I'm able to dream.
This was during the 80s, correct?
No. All my addiction took place throughout the 90s and the 2000s, but I got shot in 2001.
Now, you had mentioned that your family had ties to the mob. So crime was obviously pretty rampant at that time and all through Youngstown and that area, correct?
Yeah. I mean, there's a podcast out there. It's called Crooked City. I don't know if you've ever,
We've talked about this before.
Anybody who's listening to this podcast or that knows about that podcast, and it talks all about the mob was very relevant in Youngstown, Ohio. It's not a secret in any way, shape, or form.
Right. And my grandfather I have the same name as my grandfather. He was a pretty big deal, back in the day. My father has the same name. My father was on the lower scale of his dealings with them, but nonetheless, I still fell out of that tree, whether I wanted to or didn't. So that's why I like I don't like to glamorize it. I try to stay off of those websites because I don't like to put out names of people that I knew. There's too much name thrown around on them sites, and I just see I just see where it could go. That's why I kind of stay away from those sites because I grew up around it, and that's pretty much the only reason,
Sammy, so what's next for you and you sharing your story and the impacts that you plan on making in the world?
Well, I'm in the process of I'm in the process of writing a book. I had a ghostwriter, but I had to get rid of her because she was going through a divorce, and it just wasn't getting to where I wanted it to get. So my wife is going to finish it for me. She actually roasted it herself anyhow.
Wow.
And the only reason we went with a ghostwriter is because we had no idea how to put a book together. You have to get a publisher. And so one of her girlfriends had published a book and, told us the avenues to go through publishing it. There's a couple different ways we could publish it once it gets edited, but I'm doing that, and I'm not going to do it to make myself any money. I'm going to put all the proceeds, in a nonprofit organization, which is about to get started here also, and just try to help people that don't have the means to get recovery. There's addiction is hitting all the streets. It's hitting the rich neighborhoods. It's hitting the poor neighborhoods, and it's just as prevalent now with the fentanyl crisis than it was back in the 80s with the crack. It's just it's like you change one thing and then pops up another, and that's just how it is today with the fentanyl, and I don't want to become a guru. I don't want to. I just want to it helps me. Basically, that's why I do it, because it helps me. If I help one person, even on this podcast, if I wasn't able to help anybody with my story for whatever reason, if just one person might have woke up and said, you know what, I got to change my life around because I'm gonna end up dying like that kid did. If it just touches one nerve in one person's soul, then I'm okay. Then I'm okay.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, you've had 38 people consistently watching this podcast through the whole podcast, and then there's countless comments.
I could tell you that I've been watching the comments. They've been coming in 100 miles an hour and nothing but positivity from so many different people. I'd hate to just mention a few of the people because then I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the other people. I don't know.
Should we go through them?
We could go through them. Would you like to hear what some of the comments are that are coming in?
Sure, I would love to.
All right. Sergeant, you're right there in front of it, Kate.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and folks, if I say your name wrong, I apologize. Oh, we lost it.
Sorry.
There we go. If I say your name wrong, I apologize. But Dennis Shields said, "Hey Sammy, how you guys all doing?" Frank Gallo is watching. Felicia Malango, did I get that name right? Said, "Hey Sammy."
Yes.
Linda Erickson, "Hey Sammy." Ken Yusko, "Hey Sammy." Victor Andrews, "Hey Sammy." Rob Del Signor, "Hey, hi Sammy." Michael Pearl, "Thanks for sharing." Jordan Robertson, here supporting Sammy. Michael Pearl again says, "Love Sam." There's Al Yanarella, who's here. Chris Henderson, he said, "That's my fam." And I don't want to go through all of them, but there's so many of them. Maybe Star the Stio. I think that might be.
Yeah, Star. Yeah, she goes to the church that I go to down here.
Okay. Keep inspiring and doing kingdom work. God bless you, she says. So, I mean, there's so many different. And then D Sarge, you know her.
Yes.
She wants to make sure that the next time you're in town, you reach out. She would love for you to come to her church, Victory Assembly, and maybe do a testimony. So keep that in mind because she asked over here. Folks, D Sarge is my mother. So
Mama Sarge is what we call her on the podcast.
Mama Sarge.
Yeah. So, but there's so many people. And Gina DeRose beat down how many times, and Sammy still has an incredible outlook and love to continue to live. God bless you always, cousin. So there's and I probably gave about 20% of all the comments and all the love that's coming in right now on the podcast. So a lot of people listening in, and from what we can see, a heck of a supporting cast that you have around you. Is that in, as we wrapping up here, as we're getting close to the end of the show, the supporting cast, how important? We know that God is relevant and probably number one, right, in your life in terms of where you've been able to get to after such tragedy. The supporting cast around you, how important are they? Family, friends, people in your church group, people in Celebrate Recovery. How important are all these people to you?
Well, Tony, thanks for asking that question. The one person that you said on there, Frank Gallo, I've known Frankie since just as long as you and I've known each other. He lived on Wilson Street, grew up on Wilson, the street over from Creed. And he's going to have 34 years sobriety tomorrow, his anniversary.
Congratulations.
And he's been so instrumental to me in my life, and he's basically gave me the blueprint on how to finally live the right way, along with Paulie DePino. Paulie. Them are my guys when I come to Ohio. That's the crew that I hang out with. I don't hang around anybody that's drinking or drugging. I may run into some people that are normal drinkers and can have a drink here and there. I still have friends like that, but I run with people that are in recovery, like Frankie, like Paulie. Down here, my Celebrate Recovery family, the one pastor that became so instrumental in my life, he's leaving Thursday. He's going to Philadelphia to do God's work, but that church will still go on. It'll still be just as strong as it was, since he's came. And I got my AA family down here too. I surround myself wherever I go, and I blanket myself with solid people. As long as I have solid footing around me, if I'm on a little wavy head minded, and I'm a little off on my feet, I know I'll be fine because I surround my people that got all of their feet anchored, and that and all of them do and say what they mean. They've all got stories. They've all got stories of courageous things, but the things that I get most from them is their wisdom, especially guys like Frankie Gallo with having 34 years. My uncle, just celebrated 23 years of recovery, my mom's brother. So it's a different life that I had no idea I would eventually fall into and love it like I do, but obviously it's God's will, man. I can't, like you said, Dave, there's no other way to slice it or cut it up. This is as being one of God's kids, one of God's children. I got in the plane and I was a kamikaze pilot. He had to change my course, not once, not twice, but multiple times, and I'm lucky he's let me survive the many times that I did. I don't think he's done with me yet. I think that God's going to give me a bigger platform to where I can reach other people. And it doesn't have to be just with drugs and alcohol. I see people on a weekly basis that are dealing with, sex addiction, overeating addiction, so many things that people get hiccups in their life, and it's a fresher breath air for me to be a part of where I'm at today, because I get lost for words when I'm talking, even when I speak at churches and stuff. You know what? I'll close with this, like I always do. I'm definitely not the person I want to be by no stretch of the imagination, and I don't know if I'll ever get there. But I'm definitely not the person I used to be.
I seen you said that on Facebook, and I love that. It's almost something that should go on a shirt for you. It's truly, say that again for everybody. Maybe somebody for whatever reason wasn't paying attention. That's a fantastic quote. What was that again?
I'm definitely by no stretch of the imagination the person that I want to be, and I don't know if I ever will be the person I want to be. But I thank God every day that I'm not that person I used to be.
Yeah, and that is probably the best way. I want to say something real quick though. I did see two people that I want to point out. Melissa Morale, Missy Morale, she said she's very proud of you and God bless. And Joanne Vona, aka Mom, she said that Sylvia is an angel sent to us and him. She added that comment in. But man, I'll tell you, this went further than I thought it was going to go, right? Because when we talked to you, we did the 3-way phone call, and you said you're an open book, and you still don't know where it's going to go as far as how much you're going to be willing to talk about. And I have to tell you, that is one of the most courageous interviews, being a co-host here on David's Rising Above podcast, or even my podcast that I used to do. One of the most, if not the most courageous interview I've ever seen on any podcast, with the transparency and your ability to be able to tell what could eventually be thousands of people that'll watch this recorded.
Yeah, absolutely.
That, your story, and that in itself should be inspirational and not motivational, but inspirational to so many people, because it truly is a story of overcoming. And that's probably, even, I'm putting it lightly there, for sure.
It's definitely a story of hope that, you, for one, you're not your mistakes, and you can change, and you can rise above and overcome your challenges.
For sure. Sam, anything else? Let me ask you this, and I bet you David would agree with me here. Would you be willing to be back on the Rising Above podcast as your journey continues, and we can play catch up basically on where you're at that point, and then what life is throwing at you and what you're tackling? How do you feel about that?
Listen, Tony, for you, anything, and Dave. Now we're friends. That absolutely, man. I'm honored just to be on here. I no one ever asked me to be on a podcast before.
So if I tell you this though, now I'm gonna ask you this question also. Hopefully we don't lose you when I ask you this question. What's that thing behind you on the wall? That star. Those of you who know me, I'm a Green Bay Packer fan. And Sammy has what is that back there, Sam?
Hey, I'm gonna leave it at this. The reason I like the Dallas Cowboys is because pain is a great motivator. And I've been enduring pain with them for the last 20 years.
You got to stick with your team, though. I know you're thinking about your.
I'll never jump ship. I say a lot of I talk a lot of trash. Not a lot of trash, but I'm never gonna jump ship with the Cowboys. I'll die with.
I told you I was gonna take it lightly on you, didn't I? I said I'm not gonna.
Listen, I appreciate that, Tony.
Ladies and
gentlemen. Tell you what, though, with that being said, both of you guys, Tony's a Green Bay Packer fan, and Dave is a Detroit fan. So I'm definitely the fish out of water on this show.
Sam, we can't thank you enough. Dave, anything else you want to say in closing?
No, Sam, thanks for doing the podcast. Your story is moving, and I can't wait to see all the feedback. I mean, there's already been a tremendous amount of feedback, but I think a lot more people are going to watch it and comment, and it's going to inspire a lot of people. So thanks again for sharing your podcast and being vulnerable. It's not an easy thing to do, but I appreciate it. So
anytime, guys. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I enjoy doing this, you guys.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Sammy Vona.
All right.
God
Thanks,
bless,
guys.
guys.
See ya.
I'll talk to you soon, Tony.
All right. God bless.
God bless you guys too. Bye-bye.